Hey everyone, my name is David Rao, and I'm the music teacher who blogs at makemomentsmatter.org. You can also find me on Facebook, on Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, and a variety of other places when you search for my name, David Rao, or Make Moments Matter Music Education. I'm excited to spend a little bit of time with y'all tonight sharing about substitute teacher plans or sub plans. And you might notice I'm wearing my big sweater because yes, it is cold, and if you're following the saga through the Midwest/Plain states, no, I have not had my power turned off yet. Yes, I am worried that it could possibly happen in the next hour when I'm sharing this video, but no, I'm not going to put out the video because who knows. If Evergy decides that we should no longer have this video, then guess what? I'm going to have to cut it a little short. But I know it's an interesting day. I already know that I have tomorrow off from school because of the cold and weather, but I still wanted to come and share a little bit tonight about substitute teacher plans, because that's something that everyone has to deal with. We all have to deal with. If you're like, oh, I'm not going to worry about sub plans. Oh, my sweet summer child, hoping that you're never going to have to do sub plans. Probably you are. But anyway, it's something we all have to deal with. None of us really feel comfortable with. I don't know hardly any teachers who are like, I love my sub plans. They work all the time, every time. I don't have to do anything to them. It's amazing. I don't know anyone who says that. So that's why I wanted to share a little bit about plans today. Also because I very recently had to change, adjust, do different things with my plans. And I thought I might share about how I did that. So, first, if you hear anything in the video that you're like, that's cool, I wonder where I can find that, I have a whole page dedicated to the links and the resources and the things that I talk about in these videos. You can find that on my website, which is makemomentsmatter.org. If you go to the videos tab, you can find there's a thing that says 2020, 2021 links, or there's a link at the bottom of the video on this Facebook video, or on Instagram, my LinkedIn profile. You can just click that and go straight to the links page. So that's an option if you want those links, or send me an email. You can always do that. My email is makemomentsmatter@gmail.com. Okay, before I start talking about subplans, I know in the past I've shared about some of the resources and things that I've created and put on Teachers Pay Teachers. I know Valentine's Day just passed, and a lot of folks use things for Valentine's Day, and you're thinking like, what's next? I'm about to release all my St. Patrick's interactive games, and then I'm going to release a bundle that's like everything St. Patrick's Day. So be ready for that if you want to like just get everything, my bulletin boards, my centers, my everything. That's all going to be in the bundle, and hopefully it's going to come out tomorrow. So if you're interested, be looking for that. My Teachers Pay Teacher store, or just follow me here on Facebook. I'll probably post about that. Okay, so sub plans. I'll tell you, I have been doing sub plans every year I've taught, and I never have felt like, you know what, I did it right. There's always something where I get the notes back from the sub, and never have I ever given sub plans where the sub has followed it exactly to the letter, or exactly what I was thinking, or everything has gone right. That never happens. And so today I want to talk about some of the modifications you can make so that your lesson plans work more often or are good for your sub more of the time, because that's possible. You can have lesson plans that work better most of the time. And so I'm going to share a little bit about that. But what I want to say before I get started is don't get offended if your sub doesn't follow your plans exactly to the letter that you have left for them, because they won't. I mean, most likely, right? So they probably won't. And that just happens. That's just, because who knows who's going to be coming. Maybe the person who's coming in to take your class. Maybe maybe it's an old music teacher who now works in the district who's going to come and take over your class. I hope so, because they probably are going to have their own great adaptations and ways to add to your lessons. That would be cool. More likely, you're going to get someone who is used to subbing for a first grade class, or kindergarten class, or fifth grade class, or high school science, or maybe this is their first time. Who knows? And so subs all do their own thing. And so I've just decided, after years of doing this, where I leave the plans and I like spend all this time fussing and worrying and thinking about them, and then the sub doesn't follow them exactly, and I get like frustrated. Like, why didn't they do that? Well, I've decided I just can't do that anymore, because if I were a sub in their situation, I would probably also modify. If I knew something wasn't working, I would do something else. Or if a class came in and they were all worked up about whatever, because that happens, you modify your lesson plans sometimes. You don't be like, well, I know you're all worked up because blah, blah, blah thing happened, or we just had an intruder drill, but you know what? I'm going to just keep going with I had a rooster. Like, no, like you probably are going to modify, and subs do that too. And I've just decided I'm not going to stress out about it anymore. The thing that I get sort of annoyed with is when the sub is like, great day, did the limbo. Wait, with all my classes, you did the limbo the whole time? That's all you did? Where did you find a limbo stick? Because that's happened to me. And so, and if that ever happens, I get frustrated for a minute, and then I'm like, well, I wrote all these great plans, they didn't use them, so I guess I can save them and reuse them even for this class the next time. How great. Usually if a sub says like, this isn't working, or I tried whatever, it helps me modify and know what I need to do differently the next time. And I try and like think like growth mindset or whatever I need to think, so that I don't get stressed out about all this time I spent on my sub plans. I just try and think like, how can I make them better for next time? What can I salvage? What can I pull? What can I save? What can I do differently? Anyway, all that to say, I know we all work really hard on sub plans. Don't get stressed if the sub doesn't follow them right away. And one more thing, like I was thinking just this last week, like I am just thankful there was someone to come in and take my class, because this last week I knew I was going to be out on Monday and Tuesday. I was planning on being out, and then Wednesday I also had to be out, and I had to do emergency sub plans, which I don't love. And emergency sub plans that's their own sort of beast, right? We'll talk about that in a second. But I was just glad anyone was covering my class, and that like my classes weren't being thrown to the wind, or the classroom teacher wasn't being told like, sorry, you just don't get a special today. Like, I was just glad anyone was there. So even in the special in that instance, I have to think like, I'm glad you followed my plans as much as you did. Thank you. Right. Because and having that mindset makes me not as stressed about, oh, well, they didn't do this one thing I thought they should do. Right. Give the sub grace, give them options, and then, that's all you can do. Just be glad you were able to be gone. Hooray. Okay, so let's talk about the difference. There are sub plans, and then there are emergency sub plans. The difference is sub plans are plans that you prepare ahead of time. You can pull the resources. You can set things out on your desk. You can make it all nice. Like, you can set like piles. You can have extensive notes or whatever. Emergency sub plans are the things that like your kid broke their leg and you got to leave right now. Or you are violently ill. You're throwing up right now. Someone needs to walk in and be able to take your class. Or in my case, I knew I was going to be gone Monday, Tuesday. I didn't know I was going to be gone Wednesday. And so I had to Tuesday night throw together some plans and think like, oh crap, I hope they can find all this stuff. I hope the technology works or whatever, because I wasn't able to preview or plan or prep all that stuff before the sub took over. So emergency sub plans require you to be a little bit more organized and to have plans and things ready to go at school that emergency sub can just walk in and pick up and go. And that's tricky because I remember at the beginning of the school year, my school, like my principal was like, hey, you need an emergency sub binder in the front office so that if you ever have to be gone, we could just hand that to the sub and they can go do it. And I was like, but I'm supposed to have something that's like a plan that works for every grade that fits in with their sequence at any point in the year. Like, it needs to be ready to go at any point. I can't, that's a crazy. So I realized in that situation for just that binder, it was just like, here's this random thing that they can do for this amount of time. Or like, here's a book, or here's a video, here's whatever. If for some reason I have absolutely no say and they just need something and can go, here's something they can do. And in that instance, I don't feel bad about like, here's a DVD or here's, this game or whatever. 3, 4, 5 can all do it. If that's an emergency, I gotta go, whatever, we'll figure it out. what I did this last week was like I was able to work from home, come up with plans, and it was like a last minute sub. So I had somebody who I wasn't necessarily expecting, and I didn't know what they knew, and so I sort of had to make assumptions and do my best. And so what I found out from that experience were a couple things. One, the day I got back, I took photos of my sub folders. Like I took photos of what I have in my my cabinet. So I have a little filing cabinet right next to my desk, and on it is this thing that says Substitute Teacher Resources, Lessons, and Extras. And so in that file folder, the whole top shelf is all just sub plans. So if they pull out that shelf, there now is organized in there. And I've done boxes and things before, but it's just gotten to be so much that I now have just a file folder or a whole drawer, right? And so in there are different hanging files. And so it might be like a book paired with worksheets that go with it, or it might be a DVD paired with another activity, but it's all sort of in that folder together, which is great if you know what's there. And I was at home and I was like, oh gosh, I think that I already pre-printed the worksheets for blah, blah, blah activity. I didn't remember what was there. So the day I got back, I went and I took a photo of the different activities are there, and I just made a mental note that like anytime I use these, I need to replenish. So like you can find on Teachers Pay Teachers, I think Shelley Tomich has the Remarkable Farkle McBride. There's that book. She has a whole set of worksheets and coloring pages that go along with it. I've shared about them before. I've talked about them before because I've used them before. I've used them for years. And it's a really great set of resources. So in that file folder, there's the book. And clipped to that is a little manila folder. It has a set of worksheets. I try and print out 50 of them. I know that's probably more than I need, but what if they're like 2 days worth of classes that need to come through? Might as well have them already printed. So I print out a bunch of them, and they're just in that manila folder. And I have a set of backup worksheets, right? And so I have all of those sort of clipped together in that file folder. Now, on Tuesday night when I was writing these plans, I was like, crap, I don't remember if I copied all those or if they're in the spot. So if I have a picture of that and I like save it to my substitute folder or whatever, then I can go back as I'm writing those emergency plans and say like, I know it's in the file folder. It's in the third file back or whatever. And it's in there, and then right behind it is the worksheets. And so having that picture there sort of helps me know like what to tell the sub. It requires you to be organized, all sub-planning. So I take a picture or keep an index of what I have in that folder. I try and always add. Every month I try and find 1 or 2 activities that I can add into that pull-out drawer of different things that I can use because I want to have options there. I always try and keep backups, digital versions of backups on my computer, on my cloud drive, wherever, so that if I need to, I can send something to my school secretary and say like, hey, can you print these out for 3rd grade to go along with whatever. And so what I do is if it's like a hard copy worksheet, something that came from like my music textbook series, I scan it on my copier and keep that digital copy on my computer. Or if it's like a TPT file, I make sure there's a copy where I can get it and a copy where else I need it. So I just try and keep those duplicates and backups so that I've got them ready. And then I also take anything that I think I'm going to use and I print it out way ahead of time and I just stick it in there. So like when I was planning for Monday, Tuesday, if I already had the copies made, great. But if it was something where it's like, this is my backup activity, I already have the copies in there ready to go. And then I say just, try and be as organized as you can. So in that, I could share a picture if I were able to share a picture, but the picture's on my phone and I'm doing Facebook Live on my phone. So in there, if I were to pull out that drawer, it's just little hanging folders with manila folders in there, and it's got the book and the activity, or it's got the DVD, or it's got the whatever it is with instructions and a little lesson plan, so the sub can reach in and just grab what they need if it's an emergency situation where they're just coming in and whatever they need to do. So I've talked a couple times about books. I think books are great to go with sub plans, whether they're regular sub plans or emergency sub plans. I've talked a little bit about books in sub instances before, but I want to talk about just a couple more because I've talked about, you can go on Teachers Pay Teachers and you can find like substitute teacher resources, elementary music. Like if you do a search for that, you're going to find some things. There's some really great resources you can use out there. Aileen Miracle has a really good set called like Singing with a Sub. Lindsay Jervis has a couple really great sets of like, it's called like literature something something. Children's literature. I can look that up. But it's like to go along with a book, there's like a worksheet or a reflection or something, right? What I've started doing in the recent past is I take a book that I already have and I do a couple things with it. So let's talk about this book, The Dance of the Violin. This is a book about by Kathy Stinson and Dusan Petricic. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it. There are a couple accent marks, and I don't know exactly what those do, so sorry. It's my best guess. So this book talks about Joshua Bell, the famous violinist, and what when he was a kid, when he was first learning to play. It's this really cool story about how he got really excited about learning violin, and then he found out there was going to be a competition in Kalamazoo, Michigan, and how he really wanted to go. And he chose this piece that was really tricky, probably too tricky for him in his age. And so, but he practiced and practiced and tried. And when he got, he was thinking about it and working on it. And when he got to the judging, when he got to the actual competition, he sort of blew it. Like he started and he made a scratch, and then he did another scratch, and he like stopped. And he could have just walked off, but he kept going. Like he actually said, I'd really like to start over. And the judge was like, okay. And so he started over and did really, really great. And really impressed people. But he had that sort of false start or whatever. So I don't think that he won that competition. I think he had got third, if I remember. But it goes through, it tells kids that story. So then at the back, it has this cool page where it says, is Joshua a real boy? Did Joshua make a huge mistake at a competition? And it has these questions, then answers them. So what I would do if this were a sub situation is with this book, I would say, in my sub plans, I would say like second grade or whatever grade I wanted to do this with. Second grade, please read The Dance of the Violin, Kathy Stinson. And it should be in my pull-out thing, right? If it's like on the bookshelf, I'd say go find it on the bookshelf. But I would say please read violin, read the final page where it asks the question and answers the question, right? Then I would probably have 2 or 3 YouTube links for depending on the grade. I would try and find a video of Joshua Bell playing the violin. There are many, and you want to check because sometimes the video will be there and then it will disappear, or whoever had it up will pull it down or whatever. So I would take that and I would put the video with that with the links there. And what I do for my sub plans, I have them, is that I have a page, and on that page, so like it prints out, it says like, ooh, sorry, you can't see it. It says like the grade, the time, the teacher's name. I have the little description of what they need to do. And then I have the hyperlink. And then what I do with that hyperlink or with that lesson plan is I actually put that on a flash drive, or I put it in a cloud drive and have it sent to the sub. I like a flash drive because then they can just find it on my desk. But then they can plug it into whatever computer they're using, click it, and it just takes them there. Instead of them having to like look or search or whatever, I just put the link right in. Now, with this book, I would probably do this second or third. You could probably do it kindergarten or first grade too. But you could maybe stretch it to fourth or fifth. It's whatever you think, but I would probably shoot for second or third. If you wanted to do it at the upper grades, then it'd be great to have a video of Joshua Bell playing, maybe a second or third. It depends on how much you want them to watch and listen to, or it could be another famous violin. Joshua Bell's the perfect example because he is what the story's all about. You could also have a video, if you can't find one of Joshua Bell playing this specific song, you could do anything about Joshua Bell, but you could also find the specific song that he played, which was, if I can find it in here. He chose to play Eduard Lalo's Symphonie Espagnole. And it was famous among violinists for being difficult to master ever since it was first performed in 1875. So you could find Joshua playing that, if it's out there. I haven't looked recently. You could find anyone playing that. You could find Joshua playing anything else, and then put that with the book. And then you could also have a set of follow-up questions. Like, you don't need a fancy TPT worksheet. You could have a set of follow-up questions like, who was Joshua Bell? And what did he do? Right? That's just like a basic recall from what they learned. You could say, what do you know about the violin? List 3 facts. Or what family is the violin a part of? Or you could do anything like that, right? Anything that would go along with the book, a little worksheet to go with the video, right? And that's a great way to extend just a simple book. Depending on the grade, depending on the follow-up videos you get, depending on how long it takes the sub to read, this could be the whole period. It also depends on your class. You have 30 minutes? You have 45 minutes? It depends. But this could be a full activity. You don't have to have a cool TPT worksheet. You could, but you could just make that your own thing. One more thing that I've been doing recently, because you never know with subs. I've taken a lot of these books that I think are going to be read alouds, either in my classroom or maybe a sub, and I've recorded myself doing that reading. And so then if the sub, especially if it's like a book, this is a bad example, but if it's a book like Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, where like potentially the sub would read it and sing it. If it's a singing book or something like that, or a book with funny accents or whatever, I do the read aloud myself, so the sub can just like press play. I put it on my either my YouTube channel, or I put it on the flash drive or whatever, so that they have that and can share that with kids. Because I don't know if a sub would actually sing in front of the class. It depends on the sub, right? But to have that pre-recorded option is really nice. If you have any sort of book like this or story like this that involves instruments, wow, there's a lot more that you can do. So you can do YouTube videos about the instruments. There are some apps if your students have devices, and they can do like instrument apps. That all is going to have to be something that probably you wouldn't spring on the sub, because that's like a classroom lesson, but like you don't want to be like, okay, now sub, teach them to download this thing. Hopefully it's there. That's not a good option. But they could do research. They could watch other videos. You could do draw another instrument. There are lots of things. One of the other things that I pair a lot of times with stories like this are coloring pages for younger grades, for kindergarten, first grade. All the time I do coloring pages. So a couple of my favorites. I used a set by Melody Payne for a long time. Loved it. They're great. I can send that to you if you want. 2 others that I'd love to share. This one is especially for younger grades. I actually have it as like a bulletin board, like put it as an alphabet above your whiteboard. And there's a letter, and then there's an animal playing an instrument, and both the animal and the instrument start with that letter. So alligator playing an accordion, right? And then bear playing a banjo. I actually made this as a bulletin board, but then I was like, what if I just took the colors out and made it a coloring page? So if you buy the bulletin board, the coloring pages are there too. So I give these out. Kids love these because then they're not just coloring an instrument, but they're also coloring an animal, right? So this is a fun thing to do. And usually if I have these, I say like, here's where the crayons are. Kids can color and take them with them. I don't want them back, right? Like they can take them and go. Another set of coloring pages that I use, and this is something that I came up with in the last 6 months. I had just coloring pages that were just instruments, but I wanted to make it a little bit more, like especially if they're going to color it and take it home, I wanted there to be a little bit more substance on the page. So what these coloring pages do, it says, it has the picture, it says the name, and then it says something special. It says, Glockenspiel, I'm special because I'm very small and played with mallets and have shiny metal bars. It just gives them a little bit of context about the instrument. Let me find another example. Oh yeah, let's see. It does have a lot of, and this is something I made. It does have a lot of classroom instruments. So tone block, triangle, vibraslap. What did I say for vibraslap? I am a unique shaking instrument. To play me, you need to hold the metal frame and then hit the wooden ball. Okay, wood block, well, then it also goes into instruments of the orchestra, timpani, let's see. So your typical brass instruments, percussion, woodwinds, French horn. I played that in high school. French horn. I'm easy to spot because all my tubes wrap together to make a circular shape. Sometimes I'm just called the horn. Okay, and then, so then with all of these instruments, and there are a lot. It's a lot. That's one set, right? So I print it off once, and then I let the sub sort of hand out as they want. It also has pictures of kids playing instruments. So maybe one time for the sub lesson you have you print out just the instrument page. Maybe another time you print out the kids playing the instruments pages, and then those can all go in different uses, into the sub plans. So there are enough worksheets here, there are enough coloring pages that you could pair them with a lot of different things. You could pair them with a lesson about, or with a book about, Joshua Bell, or it could be Do You Do a Didgeridoo, or where they talk about lots of different instruments and things. Any sort of book lesson idea that includes instruments, and a lot of my sub plans do. I'll use coloring pages for kindergarten or first grade, maybe even second grade, depends on which ones I'm handing out. And then it's something that they just take and go. But I like being able to pair those things like with a video, with a story, with a worksheet. So then, maybe if one of the elements doesn't work, like maybe the internet's not working or maybe something else, there's more in there that the sub can pull and go with. I always try and give the sub more than they'll be able to do in the 50 minutes or whatever. And I put that on my sub plans, like, I'm trying to give you more than you will honestly be able to handle in just a amount of time. And that's okay. I don't expect you to get to everything, but I wanted you to have more options. Okay. So, one more thing. You could do a follow-up game, right? So if your technology is working, maybe you could do some sort of follow-up game. Now, I've come up with a bunch of different interactive games and things. So, as I was sitting there at home the other day, like, what am I going to do? Well, my kids have their iPads. I was like, oh, yeah, I made all these games. Why not use them with my students? And so I have all these interactive games, and the way the interactive games work for kids is that, well, there are a couple different options. So if the kid has their own device, like if they have a Chromebook, they have an iPad, whatever, I have these QR sheets, these QR codes, these sheets with QR codes. And the kid just takes their phone or iPad or whatever, and they scan the code, and it takes them there. Also, these all have a little URL right on the bottom that they can just type in if they're on a computer, and then they can go to the game that way, right? So that's an option. My kids all have iPads, so I can just email their homeroom teacher and say, please have them bring their iPads to music. And then they have them and they can play the games when they're there. Another thought is, if you want, you could have the sub, if you have an interactive whiteboard, or even if they don't, you could have the sub pull that up on a web browser because the games work in a web browser. And then it could be a class game where like one kid comes up and presses and gives an answer, or one kid comes up and does whatever. It works like a smart file too. So these are all games, and I was like, well, And so it was another thing that like I knew that all these games had QR codes, but I didn't necessarily have them all prepared. And so what I did when I came back to school that next time is I took all the games, and there are lots of different games. There's like instrument games and cymbal games and rhythm games, whatever. I printed them all off, and there are a lot for different holidays and different whatever. I printed them all off, and I took them and I put them in a big folder, and now this folder goes in my subfolder so that I can say like, I can pull it out and pair it with the thing if I want, or if it's an emergency, I say like pull one of these QR codes, look for, maybe I have a specific one in mind. Look for Halloween symbols and vocabulary if that's, the time period or whatever, and let the kids scan the code and play the game. Right? And so these are just really simple and easy that, again, I was like, I made these. I have all these QRs. Why don't I have them all printed out? And so they're all just printed out. They're sitting in my subtub. They're easy to go. They're easy and ready to go. Okay, QR, those are fun. You can use them in a lot of different ways. Like I said, if it's individual tech or if it's a whole group tech. If you're teaching online, you can also put the URL in there in a Google Classroom or a Seesaw or whatever, and those work really well. And they fit into Nearpod, whatever. But it's nice that like then if you want, it can be a whole group activity where the sub just pulls it up in the browser and then they can do it all together. So if you're like, I don't have iPads, well, there's another way to use it if you want. And you could do that for like 2nd grade and 3rd grade. You can use those plans for multiple grades if you want. Okay. So another resource that I was like, why did I not do this before? So I made all of these resources called Favorite Folk Songs, and it's for songs that I teach in class. Now, originally when I made these years ago, my thought was I'll teach the song in class and then I'll make these into like a bulletin board. Like I'll make a bulletin board and I'll print it out and I'll put it on the hallway. So like as they're walking by, they can have extra information about that song, or they can like see where it came from or whatever. That was my intention for the folk song sets years ago, but I'm not doing that anymore. Well, I am doing that. I am printing them out for bulletin boards. But one of the other things that I've begun doing is like, I not only have a bulletin board option, I also have the resource as a PowerPoint. So now as I teach the song, because I made all this and I was like, this is all it's like all the stuff I'd pull on a bulletin board is like where it came from, when it was first written down, do we know if there's a composer, what are some vocabulary words that go along with it, what's the historical context, like all this stuff that I was like, but I teach all of that. Like why don't I use these as visuals for when I'm teaching the song? So I made a PowerPoint version too. You can print it out. You can use it as you're teaching it. And again, so first time I was like, I made it as a bulletin board. I didn't see the possibility of like, you could use this as you're teaching, right? Woo, missed opportunity. And then once I figured it out, I was like, cool. So now I use them as a PowerPoint as I'm teaching the song, and I have reinforcements as a bulletin board. But then I was also sitting one day like dreading subplans, and I was like, oh, wait. If it's a song that like maybe we aren't going to get to it, or maybe we did it last year, maybe whatever, why don't I just have the substitute teacher go through the favorite folk song set, tell all the information, and why don't I have them do it? Like, there's enough stuff in there they could stay active for the whole time. So that's what I do. And I wanted to show you how I do that, how I tailor that, because it's not the exact folk song set. So I'm going to show you how to do that. But I'm going to try and flip my camera, which always works so well. Just kidding. It never works. I'm going to try it. We're going to see if this works. And you can see the rest of my home office. Hey, welcome. Okay. Yeah, I got to flip this. Sorry, it's going to be just a second. There we go. Okay, sorry, Instagram. I'm really trying here. My tech is working so well. It is not. Okay, hopefully you can see my computer in like a darkened room. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, cool. Here's hoping this works. All right, so here's the song I Had a Rooster, right? And so this would be like if I were teaching this song, I'd pull this up as a PowerPoint, and you can probably see over here on the side like all of these extra slides. It says like our favorite folk song of the week, our favorite folk song of the month. You could, because the song was also called the Farmyard Song. I don't know why, but that was one of the common names for this song back in the day or through time, right? And so, okay, well, the Farmyard Song, our favorite folk song of the week, our favorite folk song of the month, and then other versions without the clip art. Like I made these so that you could print out what works best, or what you call it, like, and then put it up on a bulletin board. Like, that's why all these extra random things are on the side. But I call it I Had a Rooster, and I can say our favorite folk song of the week. So if I were prepping this for a sub, I would go into the ones that I don't use, and I would delete them. Nope, not using that one, not using that one, not using that one. And then, okay, this again is another slide that like, this is great for a bulletin board to say what grade it's for, but it doesn't really make sense for a sub. So I delete it. I would probably save the part that said what state it came from or what region it came from. I would do the part that says, what is a folk song? Now, this is crazy because when I teach with these slides, I don't read them word for word, right? Like I skim through and I'm like, regional, what's that mean? And I might use that, what the words on the screen to help explain that as I'm teaching, but I don't read it word for word because like I made this and like I've done enough of these that I know what's on the slide and I don't need the definition. But a sub probably would read it word for word, or might say to a student like, okay, Juan, why don't you read this slide? Or okay, I don't know, whoever, like, why don't you read this next one? So that's there if they want it. So I would leave in all the slides that I thought would be good for them. So like historical context, sure, I'm going to leave that in there. What does the rooster say? It talks about in different countries, different countries say different things. So like some people say kikiriki and some say kukuriku and like different stuff. So this is sort of fun, right? You can put all that in there. I would leave all of this in. All the things that are like extra, it would take a sub a while to get through all of this. Right? And so it gives them lots of content. Again, if they don't do all of it, well, it's there, right? And it gives more context, and it's good for vocabulary building. It helps the students learn more about the song. So all of this is there. Then it gives a little bit of the music, and I would probably write in the subplans, I'd say, you can sing it, or along with all these favorite folk song sets, I try and add a page with links. And the links usually take them to an exemplar video. So if the person is presenting it, right? So oh rats, I didn't want to do that. So here we are on the links page. They play from the current slide. If they're on the slide and they click down on one of these, it's going to take them straight to the video. So for a sub, probably I would say, oh yeah, it's going to show them an ad. I'd probably say, if you don't want to sing the song, if you don't know the song, then click through and watch the video that goes with the song, right? I think I turned my sound off. Now, if I were introducing this song myself, obviously I would sing it, or we would have some other way to introduce it. But because it's a sub, fine. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with them watching this video, and there are multiple options. And usually with this, I've put on different videos for different reasons. So the first one in this video by Stephen Griffith is him standing with a guitar playing, and I would use that for myself as a reference if I'm going to be teaching the song. I would just leave that there for myself so that I know the song, or I want to refresh the song or whatever, but probably I wouldn't show that to kids. So here's what I mean. This is the video that is him singing. It's probably not something I would want. Yeah, kids aren't going to be super entertained by this, right?
I had a little rooster.
I mean, maybe.
That little rooster was my playmate.
So that's an option for kids, right? But they'd probably do better with the animated. So in my notes, I would say to the sub, click the third link that says, I had a little rooster animated video, right? And then there are other different, other things on here too, if the sub wanted to use it. But I delete out the slides I know that I don't want them to use, and then I just put that on a special flash drive, and I say like, here's a song you could do, and here's what I'd love for you to go. These take them a while to get through because there are so many of these slides with that extra vocabulary, with the extra context, and that is great. So ways you can use that: if you've already taught the song that grade, this is a great review. You can have them go through all the slides, because usually, like when I'm teaching the song, I may not get to the one about infinite animals or what, like I maybe won't get to the last slide. It's there for the sub if they want it, right? So I just delete out the slides I don't think I need, and I put it in there for them. And I have a ton of these. So that's the other thing. I was like, I made all these. Why don't I use them? So there are some songs I don't use every year, so I'll put that in my sub plans. It's a great emergency sub lesson, especially if you've got videos or follow-up activities that can go with it, or if you want to do coloring that goes with this, you want to do something else. It's great to be able to do that. It's also nice to have the videos, because Cassie just asked, are you actually singing in your class right now? No, I'm not. And so to have a video where someone is singing the song, teaching the song, going through the song, that's great to be able to have as an example, so that the kids are seeing the singing, hearing the singing in the class, even though I maybe am not doing that. Okay, I know I also talked about video read aloud. So one of the other things that I have in my computer, or on that flash drive, whoops, is this file that says book read alouds for distance learning. Well, originally it was for distance learning, but now it's for subs or whatever else. These are all videos that I have recorded myself reading classroom books. And the video sort of looks just like this. This book is The Best Mariachi in the World, written by J.D. Smith and illustrated by Danny Jones. In this book, most words are in English, but there are a few words that are in Spanish. And if there are words in Spanish, so I go through and explain. And then, as I'm reading the book, I'm pointing things out, talking about things. This would be like if I were reading the book in my classroom to students for a lesson. And I'll this time, this year, I've done a lot of these videos because I don't want to spend, I want to spend less time in front of my students if I can, just because of COVID and because of aerosols and whatever. If I can step back, that's great. If I can spend some time not talking at them, great. If I can have it pre-recorded, that's awesome. So that there's less aerosol production going on in the room, right? And so I've pre-recorded just videos for books that I own, because this is just a technological version of if I were standing up and doing a read aloud. And I personally don't feel like that's a violation of copyright. I'm not sharing the videos online. I'm not, spreading them throughout the internet. It's just in my classroom. It's just with my kids. I have the book. I could be standing up there and holding it, but for safety reasons or for whatever reason, I am not. And so this is the same thing. Is I have, usually I ask the sub to read the book, but if it's a book like this book that includes some Spanish, or if I'm afraid they aren't going to be comfortable with that, or if it's a book like where there's singing involved, like I showed you earlier, Twinkle Twinkle, usually I would say to a sub, I would include this video on the flash drive and say, here's a video, you can do the read aloud, or you can play this video version of it that I've already pre-recorded. And this is something that, through time, I just record one a week or a couple a week or whatever, and then I have them all in a file folder that I can use later if I need them for myself in person in class, or if I want to share in a sub plan. That's an option. It's already pre-recorded, already ready for me. Okay, I'm going to try and flip this back around. Oh gosh, I look like a zombie. I'm so glad the phone has me so washed out and crazy. Okay, cool. So that's the favorite folk song, and like I said, I have those for lots of different songs. So what I do is I take songs that I've already taught, or songs that maybe I can't teach this year, and I put them in the sub lessons, and it makes it so easy because the sub feels comfortable reading through a slide and talking about whatever, they feel more comfortable with that, and that's great. And it means that there are more things that I can put in my sub plans to have the sub complete. And I would say that if you're thinking about the content that you can put in there, if it's an old lesson that maybe you did last year, a lot of times kids are A-okay with repeating that. They're like, ooh, I love that book. Let's do it again. So if you have a lesson that worked really well in 3rd grade, you've got the book, you got a video that goes with it, you got a whatever. You can pull that and put it in the following year, or maybe you did it in the fall. We'll put it in your subplan in the spring, and kids will be totally okay with that, of redoing that lesson. Okay, so that talks a little bit about some of the content that I've used. You can do, and Lynn asked, do you use Screencastify to record the stories? No. I take, there's a swing arm thing. I've talked about it before. It looks sort of like one of those architect lamp things, like the Pixar lamp. You know what I'm talking about? The swing arm. And it's a swing arm. It's made for people who do YouTube videos about baking, basically like explanation or to-do videos. And you can put your phone in there, and it just swings it up. Basically, it sort of makes your phone into a document camera, so that you can use that camera to record the video. That's how I record. You could use Screencastify if the pictures are already on your computer, but this just makes it easy. Or I could just sit down with my phone and put it on a tripod and just stand up here or sit up here and read. That's another way to do it too. But lots of different options. Okay, so let me talk about a couple more fun things that you can do. Another one that I set out that works a lot of the time with some modifications is a thing I do with 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade where students get to recreate their own EGBDF stories. So, we're always trying to get kids to remember the letters of the treble clef. Leah says you can use Screencastify from your document camera. Cool. I've not tried that. I just use my phone. I don't. Sorry, I'll come back to EGBDF. I don't really like my document camera because it's not a very good camera. What I found is that the cameras on your phone, or cameras on your phones or iPads, are like 1,000 times better than document cameras. So this little swing arm contraption thing from Amazon costs $18 or whatever, and it basically turns my phone into a document camera. So then I can just record on my phone, and then it's easy to send. That's the other thing with my document camera. When I plug it into my computer, it uses this old technology to try and make it work, and it's just a pain in the butt. So Leah, please send me a tutorial on how to use my document camera better because it just doesn't. Anyway, it doesn't work well for me. So, but I use my phone. Anyway, that's why. Mostly because I don't like the resolution of the camera on my document camera, but also because it uses weird old tech. Anyway, sorry, off my soapbox. So I took this thing where kids get to basically take EGBDF, turn it into a sentence, and create a story. And so what I give to the sub is I give them the lesson plans. And basically, it says, the main idea behind this lesson is to reinforce the treble clef note names, EGBDF, while encouraging creative writing and critical thinking skills. So, along with this, it says there are lesson notes. I did all this when I made the product years ago, but I actually just printed out and give those to the sub. Lesson notes continued with pictures because, subs, you never know what they're going to do. And then what's in the kit, and then I also have, along with every EGBDF thing, I have example stories, right? I wrote this. Electric gorillas beat down flowers. No one knows how the electric gorillas got out. They've been safely contained in the electric animal zoo. Maybe a lock broke, or maybe a sneaky villain let them out. We may never know how or why they were released, but we do know that they immediately headed for the Main Street flower shop. Those poor orchids and roses never stood a chance. The newspaper headline read, Electric gorillas beat down flowers. So at the top, they get to come up with their story, and then they can do a little picture, and then they can put it here. What I found, this works best if you give them examples. If you don't, you're going to get some really boring lessons. Here's another one with a different, because I gave a couple templates depending on what you would want to use. Cassie, is that in your store? Yes. And I have the link on the links page. This one says, elderly grandmas bake delicious food. And then it goes through and tells a story about that. So I did that with my students. I do it every once in a while, and a couple supports. One, giving them other stories. So one of my other classes did stories, and I made a little book. And I put a little sticky on here. Student examples from a few years ago. Read for inspiration. This is for the sub. And so there are some crazy ones in here. Enchanted goblins bedazzle dragon fruit. Epic giraffes bake disgusting fudge. These kids were very, very creative. Electric green bunnies drop food. Evil garden. Okay, that one doesn't make sense. Enraged goats bleat dragon flames. So these were very, very creative. Every Gryffindor battles Dementors fearlessly. Good job, Lily. That was a good one. So these are fun, and to have these as examples, to have the teacher read and show, the substitute teacher read and show a couple of these really help kids get going. Another thing that helps them, and that's in the kit, is that I've come up with verbs for every letter, nouns for every letter, descriptive words, because it could be an adjective or an adverb, descriptive words for every letter. So if they're going through and they're like, what kind of gorillas? Oh, it could be early gorillas, energetic gorillas, expressive gorillas, electric gorillas, escaped gorillas, epic gorillas. And they don't have to stick to this list, but giving them this word bank helps you move away from every, because so many stories before I put in the word banks were every goat, or every good whatever. Oh, what instead of good could we say green, gross, gentle, generous, grotesque, giant, gallant, and it really ups the story content. So the cool thing is you could use this as a sub. You could use it in your own classroom if your principal comes and says you must have a writing lesson. Okay, because that. Okay, so it's a thing you can add in and put in your lessons, and I like putting it in the sub lessons because then it gives reinforcement of the treble clef. It's easy for a sub to do because our subs usually are subs that are like, I'd rather be teaching a 4th grade ELA classroom. And so this reminds them of that and gives them a chance to sort of work those skills. But it's also, it takes quite a bit of time. And so it's something that they can do really well. And then what I added this time was when I left. So here, let me see if I can find those notes. Yeah, so I put on there, please watch this tutorial video for students to get oriented about the treble clef. So I just did a quick Screencastify sort of video about on my computer showing them EGBDF, reminding them like, it's part of the treble clef, blah, blah, blah. Like it just took an old lesson, sort of redid that. Next, the students will doing EGBDF stories, blah, blah, blah. I said, it's all pre-printed, it's all ready to go, it's in the file folder next to my mini fridge. Look for this. And then I put in a little picture of like the lesson kit they need to look for. Students get a story worksheet and a word bank sampler, follow the instructions to lesson notes, blah, blah, blah. As a backup, I had taken, there are quite a few, there are a couple different treble clef games, and I printed out the QR so that if they finish early, I don't think hardly anyone did because this is a long assignment, they could then scan the code and play a game. So again, I want to give the sub more than they're going to be able to use in the 50 minutes or the 30 minutes or the whatever, because I want them to have more options than not. If it's like a sub who's like, well, we're supposed to be teaching 50 minutes and what you gave me only lasted 30, so I'm going to just show a random YouTube video. Like, who knows what they're going to do? And sometimes that's fine. Like I had a sub once who was like, I taught elementary music for 20 years. Cool. Use my plans or not. But sometimes it's like, I don't have anything to do with music. So I just showed them this video online. I'm like, ooh, I would never have shown that because it's like a ripped off copyrighted thing, and also it's like PG-13, or it talks about whatever, or it has guns in it, or like things that I'm like, oh, I would never have done that. I give them more options that I think are great, so that they can pull and use those as needed. Okay, I have a few more minutes, cool, so I can show a few more books. I've talked before about DVDs and things that I think are cool to have. In fact, I have a lot of resources on my Amazon page that you can go through, like books, DVDs, stuff that you can share with students if you're like, oh no, I gotta, whatever. So a couple DVDs that I've shared that I've found in the last couple of years that are great. I'll just really quickly go through. So anything Stomp, right? There are so many different Stomp versions. Stomp Out Loud, Stomp Live, Stomp whatever, Stomp Around the House. There are different stomps that you can do, which is cool. All the like Beethoven Lives Upstairs or Bach Braided My Hair, or what I don't know the names of them. The different ones. These are old. When I was in elementary school, we watched these. Kids still watch them. They're still down for this. But it's a live action movie. It tells a little bit about the history of the composer. Cool. Beethoven's the one that I have because that's the one I watched when I was in elementary school. But there's like one for Bach and Handel and whoever. You might have them in your classroom library. Assuming your DVD player works. Mine doesn't always work for our subs, of course. Another thing sort of like Stomp is this thing called Blast. And Blast, there's a PBS recording of this. Blast was like a Broadway show that included like sort of like marching band visuals, all sorts of really cool stuff. It's like over an hour, 115 minutes. Super fun. You can show portions or all of. It's great for students. Bach Braided My Hair. Is that real? No, it's not. I'm afraid it's not. But there is a Bach video like this. It's not Bach Lived Upstairs. It's like Bach. I don't know. I don't remember what the Bach one is called. Sorry, so that's why I said Bach Braided My Hair. That is not correct. I'm wrong. Yeah, I don't know. I would think they would say like also buy the Bach one, but nope. At childrensgroup.com. Find it. You can find some really cool like Sesame Street videos for K1 too, if you're like, I want them to sing along, or Another one that's really fun is this one called the Biscuit Brothers, and this one is cool. Box Fight for Freedom, maybe. Thanks, Lynn. I don't know, maybe. I haven't looked for a while. The Biscuit Brothers. This is really, it's another PBS. And it's like introduction to the orchestra, and there's sing-along stuff. It tells them about dynamics and tempo. Another fun one, easy. And these are like cut up into episodes, so you could show like one day, one the other day. It's another fun DVD. Ooh, okay. I have time for a couple more books that I would use. There are a lot of these books by Isa Trapani that are books of songs. Right, and so I love that all of you are like looking online. You're like, is this the one? Mr. Bach Comes to Call? Maybe. Box Fight for Freedom? Sure. I'm not sure exactly. But yeah, there's some cool ones. Twinkle Twinkle Little Star is a great one. She has I'm a Little Teapot. She has, a bunch of books. The Isa Trapani books are really good because they're fun little illustrations, and also not just the original song. It goes on and makes up its own little verses for extra things. I have a lot of books that are just songs. Hundreds of Old Lady Who Swallowed Something, a fly, a cello, a viol, a horse. There are lots of different versions of that I put in my subtub. So lots of song books, and I have a whole page on Amazon dedicated to books that are based on songs. Here's another one that I really love. This is by Eric Litwin, the creator of Pete the Cat, called Sing and Dance in Your Polka Dot Pants. It's the Nut Family. There's a whole series of books for the Nut Family. This one is fun because there's a recorded version of this book online where the author reads the book. There's a song that goes with it. There's a dance. There's a YouTube video. This is another great one that you can extend and add to for your younger grades, most likely. And it's fun to throw that into the mix and then give the sub lots of options. But like I said, I always try and do multiple things. So for a younger grade, it's probably going to be a book or two, and a coloring page, and a video, and something else. Because if one component doesn't work, then other ones will. And here's a backup, and here's another backup. And if you really need something, you can always go on the sub folder, or the sub flash drive, and you can do one of the read alouds that I already did for kids. That's always an option. So this in my sub flash drive, along with an old iPod that has this old iPod that we used to use primarily. Now we don't. And on the iPod it says like there's a playlist that says like substitute teacher, right? So that they can go through and find, there's like The Composer is Dead and the Farewell Symphony, and for different books and things that we're going to use, it's already loaded on here, and subs know how to plug this into my speaker through an aux cord, and they can run with that. So that's really easy to use too. But I like having them very easily labeled, sub flash drive, iPod, so that they can find that and go and use that. So like Sing and Dance in Your Polka Dot Pants, the song for that is on the iPod, and the video for that is on the flash drive. But all those are things that you have to do a little bit of pre-planning ahead of time. Okay, all that to say, I hope this gave you a few more ideas and things about how you can take resources maybe you already have and adapt them for a sub, or how you can extend some of those resources. If you just delve into like, one favorite folk song set, or one book, or one whatever that you want to take and like add and add and add and add, you can find lots of different ways to extend that lesson so that you're not reinventing the wheel. You're just taking a wheel that you already have and you're like adding more spokes to the wheel. I don't know where this analogy is going. But you can take that idea and add more to it. So you're not redoing lots and lots and lots. You're just taking what you have and snowballing with it. Okay, and I hope this gave you some of those ideas. A lot of the resources, all the resources mostly that I've talked about in the video are on the links page, so you can find them there. But if you can't find it there and you're like, hey, can you really track down that Bach video or whatever, send me an email. My email is makemomentsmatter@gmail.com. Next week, I hope to get back to more like just regular lessons. But I'm hoping to share more sub ideas throughout the week on my Instagram, my Facebook, and my Twitter as we go forward. But next week I hope to be back next Monday night with just lessons for your classroom. What can you do? What can you take and roll with? Less sub, more just all the time. All right, thanks everyone for coming along. Stay warm, stay safe, have a great week. Bye everyone.